Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean go solo live? Have you ever been asked why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
Before we get started, today I have two announcements about exciting things going on with Transform Via Travel. The first is the launch of our first group trip. I've partnered up with Kelly McDermott from A Path Less Taken, and we're planning an amazing trip to New Zealand in January 2019. For more information, go to bit.ly, bit.ly link, /WENZ 2019. It's all lowercase letters, WENZ 2019, and follow us on Facebook at Transform Via Travel for more information about an upcoming question and answer webinar. Also, I've just launched an online program called Get Ready, Get Set, Go Solo, designed to help the first-time solo traveler get unburied from all the research and actually start traveling. For more information about the online program, go to bit.ly/ready-set-solo. That's bit.ly/ready-set-solo. And that information will also be included in our show notes. Now, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Hello, sisters, and welcome to Go Solo Live. This is Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel. It's time to sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy my conversation with Robyn Fountain as we find out how in her mid-50s, she is now traveling Eastern Europe, and that is just the beginning of her solo journeys. Today, I'd like to welcome Robyn Fountain, who has such a great story that will appeal to everyone in our audience. I'm so excited to have you here, Robyn.
Well, thanks for having me, Jennifer. I was really excited to hear from you a few days ago and be able to kind of fit this in this crazy digital nomad global citizen life that I have embarked on.
I have talked to some digital nomads before, but what's nice is oftentimes they tend to be a bit younger. And everybody has a really cool story that gets them to where they are. So before we get into your story of what brought you to this lifestyle, because this is a big change for you, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you are right now?
At the moment, I am in Brasov, Romania, which is in the Transylvania region. And yes, folks, Transylvania does exist, kind of in the north center part of Romania. And where, Dracula is supposed to come from, and everything is themed around Dracula or Transylvania. I'm actually staying at a hostel called the Evil Clown Hostel, and my friend can't imagine why I intentionally chose a place with that name. In a few days, I'll go up to a different area of Transylvania, a few hours north, just to see if there's much of a difference. But what's funny is my neck was long enough when I craned it out my window. There's some steep wooded hills, or I should say like cedar forested hills, that have a big sign, Brasov, like they have in Hollywood, except it's totally not Hollywood. A couple of days ago, I was in Bucharest, which is the biggest city, and that was crazy. It was a place called Old Town and a 24-hour day party, which was very different. I mean, it's busier than New York and Los Angeles. It was insane. So I kind of needed some peace and quiet.
Well, that sounds like a bit of a shift in lifestyle if you're talking about being over there, exploring the places that you're exploring. What led you to embark on this type of journey? Tell us a little bit about your backstory.
So I'm 54 years old, and I grew up about half my life in New York and about half my life in Oregon. I had lived in Portland, Oregon, which is the major metropolis, and then I lived in Southern Oregon, closer to California, which is a smaller town. I've had different types of work along the way. I've worked with women coming out of prison through a transition program. I've been in the hospitality business. I've worked with a big personal growth guru, author. And then in the past couple of years, I found myself in a place to look for other kinds of work. First of all, I felt like there was some age discrimination out there, which is not uncommon for women over 50. And I decided to start doing what I've always done, but do it for myself. I started out doing some virtual assistant work, but really I wanted to do something a little bit broader than that based on my background. And what actually got me on the road was I was in a 5-year relationship that was really toxic. I needed to leave. I was living in a very expensive area, seems like almost any desirable place to live in this country is expensive.
Yes.
The notion of moving my stuff, I had a storage unit, small storage unit I had paid for about a year and a half of stuff that I might need someday. I was driving a Mini Cooper, which it holds more than you'd think, but really not that much. And I was getting more and more anxious about how to relocate my stuff and where did I want to go. I was going to go move near a very dear friend in a totally new state in Georgia. That wasn't feeling like the thing. And the path wasn't being smooth for me. Nothing was working the way I was trying to make it work. So I'm thinking about my stuff and I'm like, oh, it's going to cost me $2,000 to move it. And then that's not even with furniture. I mean, that's just like personal stuff. And the relationship was getting worse and worse. I was getting more and more miserable, nearly non-functional, emotional level. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Under some unexpected circumstances, he was away from the house for a few days, and my friend drove 6 hours to come help me get my act together there, get rid of things. She moved a little bit of stuff up to her house to store for me. I mean, I literally pared it down what I could fit in my Mini Cooper and a cedar chest and a few paintings. That's what I own. And when the time came, which was just a few days later, because I was prepared now and I knew I could pick up and go in a minute, this wasn't the kind of relationship where there was going to be a conversation about, honey, this isn't working out and we need to talk. No, it was going to be like, I'm going now, bye. That's just how it was going to have to be. And so that point came and I put everything in my Mini Cooper. I bounced around with a couple of people locally for a couple of weeks, finishing up some business down in Ashland, and drove up to Portland, Oregon, spent a month there visiting family and friends, and started planning where I was going to go. I think I skipped the part where I was sitting at my dining room table one night, just pondering all of this and saying, I feel like going to Thailand. Just like I've been there before, but traveling had not been on my radar once I had gotten an RV. And all of a sudden I realized like it is cheaper. I can live cheaper traveling than I can living the prepackaged life.
Moment is a huge aha moment for people to take that and say, gosh, the way that we're used to doing things in the US and what's possible to do in the world, like in totally different stratospheres.
Exactly. And, I was finally at the point. Well, now I've never had children, so that wasn't a piece of it, but there were other parts and pieces of my life where I was making obligations. And then I realized I was like, you know what? My parents are healthy. I'm not going to wait around to see if sometime they don't get healthy. Like, sit around for 15 or 20 years to see if they need me. I'm going to do this now. And this is the time for me to reset and reorient and get myself out into the world, to absorb from the world, but also what I am trying to put out through the work that I do now. And I originally was going to go to Central America. I started planning based on high season, low season, weather. In order to be able to live out of a backpack for more than a year, you kind of want to keep your climate similar. I was going to go to Central America. Probably a good thing I didn't, because since that time, Nicaragua had an uprising and Guatemala had a huge volcano. So I ended up in Eastern Europe. It was in my budget. It's really one of the places I've always wanted to go. I'm a political science major, and my area of interest was always the former Soviet Union and Eastern Bloc countries and the psychology and sociology around those communities and how they have survived and come back or not, and how. And so now I'm going to all the places where I'll never, ever be able to learn the language or the alphabet, but they're places I never thought I would see.
One of the things that you mentioned as you started telling this story was really about the financial side of it. And, when I've had conversations with folks in the past, we're often comparing people from more of these larger urban areas or on the coasts. And I'm Midwest based, but our listeners are from all over. Can you get a little bit into what the financial side of this digital nomad lifestyle looks like for you?
So basically, I can live on about $800 US a month, not including when I fly, which since I'm in Eastern Europe, I'm not flying. I did fly from Hungary to Romania, and that was a complete waste of money. Airports stress me out now, packing and unpacking and the shoes on and the shoes off. And I've decided I'm just going by train, which I don't care how long it takes because I have time, but I'm not, that mommy warbuck. So I figured my housing is approximately between $8 and $11 a day. I can eat very well for maybe $10 to $15 a day, even less if I go to the grocery store, which I try to do as long as there's refrigeration and place for me to kind of, not prepare, but make sandwiches, something
Sure.
like that. And then tiny bit of fun money, not very much because I'm not on vacation. I'm not a tourist. I'm just living my life. So in August, I'm going to Ukraine. I go on a few websites and they're kind of work trade, volunteer trade situations.
Okay.
So in this particular one, there's a woman who runs a small language school in Ukraine, not far from Lviv. And so I'll be there for 6 weeks, trading room and board for helping teach English 5 hours a day, 5 days a week.
So like you said, this is really a poignant thing to keep in mind that you're not really there as a tourist. You're just there living your life. And so that is a mindset where, of course, you're experiencing the culture, but you're able to budget your expenses totally differently. And it sounds like you're traveling a lot slower because you're not trying to cram it all into itinerary.
Exactly. Like I was fortunate enough, when I told my dad that I was going to start in Hungary instead of Central America, he says, wow, that's always been on my bucket list. And the next day he called me and he says, can I come with you for the first few days? Book me a ticket. So my dad's 81. We've never done anything like this together before, ever.
Wow.
We haven't even spent this much time together one-on-one. And I don't know, like since I was a girl,
Yeah.
So we traveled for 40 hours with a couple of layovers and this and that and canceled airline. So we had about a week in Hungary. We did 4 days in Budapest and like 2.5 days in Szeged, which is a smaller town. And not only did we get to do it together, but because my dad went such a big distance for a short time, he kind of treated us so that I didn't have to stay in my budget. We did everything that we wanted to do and more tourist things than I would normally do. But this was his experience. I can go back, and I can take my time. Also, right now, I feel like I'm at the buffet table, just tasting appetizers to decide where I want to come back to and spend more time.
That's fantastic. I think the fact that you were able to experience that with your dad too must have been exceptionally special. I didn't start traveling until my dad was already passed. So that must be a moment to treasure.
Definitely is, for both of us. And I have been moving around a little bit more than I'd like to, about every 5 days, which is more than I would like to. But I have a couple of things to do sort of on a timeline before I go to Ukraine. Also, part of it has to do with the rules around how long you can stay in certain European countries. It's a total of 90 days in 180 days, except the Balkans don't count against that. And neither does Romania and a few other countries. But Spain, Portugal, the Nordic countries, there's about 26 countries that altogether you can only spend 90 days. So I also have to divide and kind of count my days as I go to stay within the regulations.
So how do you even start to learn? Like, I don't even know that would have been a question I would have thought to ask. How do you start to learn some of that?
I am a crazy, nerdy researcher. I have the head full of junk. I have to know things. I just have to know. So as soon as I start looking up visas, and being from the United States, we take some things for granted, like, yeah, I can go anywhere, kind of. But just to make sure, what's changed? What's changed since 9/11? What has changed since 2000? What's changing since the Brexit? What's changing since the walls came down, in the last 30 years in the Eastern Bloc countries. And so I came upon this new rule about, they're called Schengen countries, it was a referendum, I guess, for European Union countries for the citizens of those countries to be able to move freely amongst the other countries. You don't use a passport, you don't get visas. But how it's affected tourists is putting guidelines around the time, and instead of being able to spend 30 days in this country, 30 days in this country, because the European Union has now become a union rather than a set of individual countries. So I came across that, and it took me a while because there's like 22 European Union countries, but there's 26 Schengen countries, but not all the European countries are Schengen countries, and not all of the Schengen countries are European Union countries. So I'm like, okay, I need the list. Check them off.
I would have been spreadsheeting this whole thing.
No, and then I made a spreadsheet, of course.
I love it.
So I had what countries, where they're a part of, added up my days in each one, and trades. Now things have changed. Where I was going to go and what order have changed for a few reasons. But I have a sense of how this works, just not to get in trouble and end up in some horrible, I don't know what situation.
Right.
A big fine or something like that. I'm probably not going to go to jail, but a big fine or just, just being perceived as being very inconsiderate and a rude American who does not want to follow the rules.
And right, we want to make the good impressions as we go. So as you're out living right now, and when we started our interview, you had mentioned that you're currently in a hostel, which I think is a great environment, but there's a lot of people who are like, oh my gosh, what is that all about? Now that's one of the reasons that you're able to keep your living expenses so low, because of course, housing costs is a major part of a budget. Can you talk a little bit about the hostel experience for someone of your age?
I've been in, I think, 3 hostels so far. Every hostel is different. Every hostel has its own personality, age range kind of thing. So the one I was at in Bucharest, I actually had the female dorm to myself almost all of the time, except for 48 hours maybe out of the week I was there.
Okay.
And so I say female dorm. Not every place separates female and male. It's not the way to maximize their space. A lot of them are mixed dorms. So right now I'm in a room with like 3 guys and 3 girls. I haven't come across anything inappropriate yet. You hear stories, especially in the big party hostels, about how people think if you put a sheet across your bunk, nobody can hear what you're doing in there with your new friend for the night, or people taking care of other of their needs and thinking nobody else is noticing. I think for being my age, so far, people are friendly, but I'm not the pickup target. Everyone's been very respectful. So I stayed in 2 places in mixed dorms and then 1 place in a female dorm. And then across the way, there was a big group of young boys on a party weekend, but they never tried to come in the room. They never tried getting the door open. I mean, they were just there on their own, minding their own business, having their own party. Yes, sometimes I'll forgo a shower for a couple of days just because I'm not really comfortable with the setup. There wasn't really a place to hang your towel or your clothes close to the shower without getting them wet. But I'm also not walking across the bathroom to get dressed. So I'm like, I'll just skip a shower. I'll just spray a little more or something like Lysol on me. I haven't come across like inappropriate sexual behavior, but you definitely have to have your mind in it. And maybe if I had not traveled when I was 25 doing the hostel thing, I wouldn't have had an understanding about what it was going to be like.
Good point.
So I already had that in my mind. Now I'm at a place, I was a little disappointed based on the description. I expected air conditioning and it's not working because they're having construction done. And I guess they can't have the electrical load of air conditioning and power tools at the same time. And I was trying to be patient with that. But then there's like all these workmen out there and there was dust flying and then I didn't know where to walk and I dislodged this guy's tile stone that he was trying to set and I almost fell on my butt. And I'm trying to, be polite and be compassionate. They're trying to run a business, small business owners. But that almost got me because I almost got hurt. I'm like, this is a safety hazard. And that's where I draw the line.
I agree.
But you do have to be prepared. You got to be prepared to keep an eye on your stuff. Right now, I have my backpack. Well, I have a special security lock that actually goes into my computer. I have a security slot on my computer. A lock goes in it on a cable that I can wrap around, and it's wrapped to the bedpost.
That's awesome.
And, I have a special purse that I can put locks on it, and I sleep with it no matter where I am. I bought underwear that has a zipper in the front that I can put my passport and cards into once I'm that close to my body.
Who were people that you were studying on their travels? Are there any people that you follow that you have used for advice? Any role models?
I joined 3 Facebook groups for solo female travelers. The first one was over 40, women over 40, and then 2 other solo women's travel tribe, and I don't remember the other one.
Okay.
And just to see what questions were being asked, what people were coming across. I do know of one person who is from the town where I lived for 6 years, but I never knew her there. But I know a lot of people who know her because it was a small town, it was like 20,000 people, including 5,000 students. She was going to travel for a year. She's going on 2.5 years. And I think she's in her 50s. So I've been following her, but mostly just general groups because I'm pretty independent. And as I've already demonstrated, I'm like information research, like know-it-all, get all the information person. And, I was talking before about when I was trying to move to Georgia and things weren't working. As soon as I made the decision to do this and started putting it out and announcing it to the world, everything worked. Everything went pretty much the way I wanted it to. And I'm like, clearly I'm doing the right thing. I've had family and friends. I'm concerned. I'm worried. What are you doing about this? I mean, my one friend, she made me fill out advanced health directive and a power of attorney. And
yes.
And this and that. And, everyone had a concern or a consideration. And I had somebody else ask a woman I used to work with, say, so who are you going with? I said, I'm traveling alone. She goes, you can't do that. It's too dangerous. I said, I can totally do it. We're doing it all the time.
So that's honestly, you've just gotten to the heart of why I've been doing this podcast for the last 2 years. Because first of all, American women don't have a lot of examples for women generationally who've been doing this, where in a lot of other countries with different types of systems for healthcare and culture, solo women traveling is just part of what they do. So in America, it doesn't matter even what your age is. We just don't have a lot of people saying, oh yeah, my grandmother did that or things like that. So they're thought of as weirdos, and everybody projects their own lens of like, don't you have a boyfriend? Don't you have any friends who travel with you? Like, what makes you so weird? If you're going to travel, you have to go alone. So
nobody likes me. Everybody hates me.
Right. And then like, once you're gone and then you start sharing, I think everybody starts to be like, oh, this looks pretty awesome. Oh, okay.
I have a male friend. He's older, and he would never, ever, ever do anything like this. And every time I talk to him that I'm having a little bit of a bad day, because believe me, bad days happen. You get lonely, you're disoriented, you're tired because you've been up for 30 hours. You wake up, you can't find the flipping coffee for 2 blocks, which, first world problems, but come on. My back hurts and I don't have a chiropractor. He'll go, maybe you should just come home. Maybe you should just come home. I'm like, no, I am not coming home. And now I'm not talking to you for a week because that's what you keep saying to me. And clearly after 8 years, you have no faith in me, and that's not okay.
Right. When you think about what those challenges are, what are the techniques that you're using to persevere, to stay present and focused on the fact that this is what you want to do, even if it's hard sometimes?
Well, the fact that I get to do it, which is, I think it's a huge gift. So just knowing that I am lucky to be able to do this. Sometimes it takes Starbucks, just because I know when I go there, I'm going to recognize the menu and they're going to have Wi-Fi.
Yes.
And as much as I want to support local small businesses, sometimes I just need to find Starbucks. Very different from traveling 25 years ago. There's the internet. There are my women's groups that I belong to, whether business related or travel related or just support related. I have, hangouts. I can, once I get the time zone down, I can call my friends. I can do video calling. I can send messages and have somebody message me back immediately or when they get up. And sometimes I just stay in bed. I stay in, I organize stuff. I take a nap. I'm very excited. Like my phone, I didn't even know my phone did this. Like it counts my steps because I'm not a step counter. I'm looking, I'm like, I'm doing 8,000 steps a day. I'm not even trying. Like, this is amazing.
Have you started to make friends where you are? How are you connecting with people? And I want to also get into this opportunity that you found where you'll be teaching English. So making a little bit of an income as well.
That is actually not income. It's trade for room and board. So, I mean, yes, it's kind of income, but it's saving me in 6 weeks, probably $800, $900 in room and board. And I found that I always recommended a few websites for people who want to look for that sort of thing. I don't know if you want me to mention them or not. Certainly can. One is workaway.info is one of them. helpx.net is one of them. There's one called World Packers. And there's also something called Mind My House. So there's house sitting and pet sitting sites also. I haven't had as much luck with. And it depends on the country where you're going to find the opportunities for those.
Got it.
But then you asked me something before that about
connecting with people.
Oh, I do try to meet local people. It's not always easy. They're either usually running the hostel or they're in business, and it doesn't always feel very authentic. I've been in places where people act kindly, but they want your business. They want your money. There was only one person in my dorm who was actually there during the day when I was there also, and she happened to be American. We went out for lunch. I was walking around in Old Town Bucharest one night, and I was tired of walking around, but I was tired of sitting by myself. I saw a young blonde woman sitting alone. I asked her if she was traveling alone. Could I sit with her? She said yes. She was Australian. So we just started talking and found out we have the same first name. I was having dinner or finishing up dinner, and 2 Romanian men sat next to me, and we just started talking, and they were very appropriate. They did not try to, come on to me, make it anything but what it was, just having a conversation. And one of them were like Facebook friends. So that's a little bit slow going because sometimes people really come and go a lot, but I want to do more of it. I'm excited to be in one place for 6 weeks. when I go to Ukraine. And also that this woman that runs the school is probably about my age, maybe a little bit younger. I think she'll be a good resource. And then I am going to Germany. That's the only place I'm going back to that I've been before because I have friends there. I have people who were my exchange family when I was in high school. I went for 2 months as an exchange student to Germany. And now the sons who were infants and not born when I went the first time are now 37 and 39 years old. And the dad is 74. So I'm going to see them. And then a friend of mine from high school has been working in Germany at the army base in Wiesbaden for 10 years. And I reached him. And so I'm going to see him. And because I've been to Germany a few times and it's my closest second language, although I'm far from fluent, that is like a very homey place to me, very comfortable place for me, that I don't feel like a complete outsider.
That makes a lot of sense. So you have a total of 90 days that you can be doing what you're doing right now. Mm-hmm. Where are you researching for your next opportunities?
So that's 90 days, not including the Balkans. I can have 90 days total in Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Croatia, if that fits into my schedule before or after. So my next European, and Romania is not currently part of that rule either. So what I'm doing here does not count against my 90 days, nor the 90 days in the Balkans. So I'll be in Germany I'll probably go to the Balkans on the way to Germany. I'll be in Germany for about 2 weeks. I'll be in Poland maybe for a few days. I want to go. My grandfather immigrated from Poland and I never met him. So I'm going to go to the town where he came from. And then I will head to Ukraine a little bit earlier than I need to see some other places. It's very inexpensive. And then that is 90 days in and of itself. That'll take me to mid-September. And then I may be going to Africa. I'm not sure about that yet. If I don't go to Africa, I might go back to the Balkans. And then around January, head to Southeast Asia because that's a good time of year.
That sounds amazing. What about your ties to the U.S.? Again, it adds so much to the expense to feel like this need to come home as you're out traveling. What is that draw for you? Is that something that's even on your radar?
My family and friends know that I have no anticipated return date. So this is a little bit funny. In 1989, the first time I went overseas, I went to Thailand obviously crossing the Pacific Ocean, except I did not return crossing the Pacific Ocean. I continued around through Europe and came back over the Atlantic Ocean. So I lost the day, going over the international date line, and I never got it back. And this is part of my mission, is to return over the Pacific Ocean and get my day back.
Yes.
From 1989. It's kind of a joke, but it's kind of rewind is sort of the mission of this trip. So after I go to Southeast Asia, it will be about a year, and that might be the right time to cross over the Pacific, get my day back. But I'll only be there for a visit and bounce around with family and friends and then decide where I'm going to go next. I haven't done anything in South or Latin America or Central America. I mean, there's a lot of places I haven't hit yet, but my first plan was a year, and maybe it's going to be 2 years. I have a business that I need to build also, get back to, that I haven't been paying attention to because of all the emotional and physical upheaval. And so some of it's going to be determined by how far I get with that.
That's great. So we're at the point in the show where I'd like you to make sure everybody knows how they can find you, what kind of business you are in to offer the world, and if there's a way that people can keep following you on your travels.
Okay, well, right now, just being followed on my personal page on Facebook, which is just Robyn Fountain. I haven't set up any special blog or anything like that. My business is, what it has morphed into is basically what it turns out. It's that I am a change and transition expert.
Yes.
That's what I do. Women coming out of prison, people shifting in their business, me shifting in my life, me helping other people get through tough times in their life. And so I call myself a revision and change expert, and I do strategic planning and coaching for people who are faced with or who are choosing change, transition, or big leaps. My company is called Kaleidoscope Strategies because with a kaleidoscope, even the tiniest shift can have a huge impact in what you see and how you see the world and how you see your life and then how you see your solutions. But I keep my website simple, just robynjfountain.com, ROBYNJ Fountain, like a water fountain.com, because kaleidoscope is hard to spell, even for me.
That's true.
I do also have a Facebook page for my business called Kaleidoscope Strategies. I can start sharing there more from my personal page, share stuff over there. I know that's going to be more accessible than people having, friends. If you want to go to the page, Kaleidoscope Strategies, and like it, I'm going to start providing more content over there about change and transition and how to navigate it and how people feel about it. And even when you choose it, it's not comfortable. When you don't choose it, it's really uncomfortable and it's sad and it's painful, but you never know what's on the other side. People say, how can you afford this? People have mortgages and cars. And well, you know what? I got divorced. I sold a house that I had with my ex-husband and my mother, sold my car, filed bankruptcy, not all at the same time, but I have freedom, but it didn't come emotionally cheaply.
Right.
It didn't come easily, but I'm making the best of where I ended up. And I'm taking advantage of the fact that I have no debt and I have no financial obligations and commitments any place. That's me making the most of something that made me very sad and shamed for a long time.
It's understandable. And I appreciate that you share that. It is part of the story as people are making these transitions. There are those financial implications. And without someone actually disclosing that this is not easy and this is the messy stuff, people have this idea of, oh, I could never do what she does because her life was perfect or whatever, or she had all these reserves financially. And so it is helpful to be real about what that picture is because everybody has their own mess, whether it's a financial mess or a relationship mess.
Not everything good grows from golden seeds.
Agreed.
And we all know what fertilizer is made from. So.
I love it. Well, Robyn, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show today. So if someone is in that messy transition and they want to just start reaching out, they can reach out to you.
Over to my website. My email is on there. As I travel, phone contact without good planning is difficult. So a good initial thing is either through my website, strategies at robynjfountain.com. That's the email. Or go over to my Facebook page and like it, comment, send me a message through there, and I will be in touch. I offer free 20-minute curiosity calls, however we make that happen. Hangouts, WhatsApp, Zoom, Skype. It's all about the creativity. And really, I just want to let people know I primarily work with women, not only women, and not only women who are born as women. So I just put that out there because some people find it hard to find their right place to get the information from. It's all possible. It really is.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, Robyn.
Thank you, Jennifer. Have a great day.
Wasn't it great to hear the stories that Robyn shared with us today? What I like most is her distinction between being a tourist and just having a new place to live. I think that makes a big difference in how you approach your travel. Well, sisters, we've reached the end of another episode, but the conversation doesn't have to end there. You can find us on Facebook at Transform Via Travel and make sure you invite your friends to listen to Go Solo Live. Until next time, remember, go solo, not alone.